ओके। हेलो एवरीवन। क्या आप लोग अपने कैमरास ऑन कर सकते हैं सब? थैंक यू सलोनी। थैंक यू दिलदार। थैंक यू सानिया। अ, आप लोग ठीक है। मेरा नाम दिव्या है और आज के सेशन में मैं आप लोगों के साथ ही रहूंगी। सो आप लोगों को कोई भी प्रॉब्लम हो ऑडियो वीडियो को लेकर तो आप लोग मुझे बता सकते हैं। और हमारे साथ हितांश भैया हैं आज। तो हितांश भैया आप लोगों का सेशन लेंगे। तो आई होप आप लोगों को मजा आएगा उसमें। ठीक है। और उससे पहले सेशन से पहले आप लोग अगर अपने सब लोग एक बार अपने कैमरास ऑन कर दीजिए और एक एक करके अपना नाम या तो चैट पे लिख दीजिए या फिर अनम्यूट करके बता दीजिए। ओके, नो प्रॉब्लम सानिया। आप 5 मिनट की बात कर सकते हैं। ओके। हितांश, सो यू कैन टेक इट फॉरवर्ड फ्रॉम हियर।
Yeah, ma'am. One second.
ऑल राइट।
So, hello everybody. I'm Hitansh. Before we go ahead, I just want to ask you all which language we'll be comfortable with today. Should I go ahead in English or is Hindi the way you want to go?
English, please. Like we are comfortable in English.
English, English, please.
Okay. Right. So, I'm Hitansh. I'm a grade 10 student from Hyderabad, and today I'll be talking about economics. And within economics, I will mainly go into the concepts of finance and how finance and money management impacts mental health of a person. Right. So before we go ahead with money management, let's just learn about what economics is. So economics is the social science studying how individuals, businesses, governments, and nations are worried about allocating resources. So resources are something that will help you build something or make something. But then in today's day, resources are limited. Like for example, if you want to make food for about 5 people, but you do not have enough rice for that. So your rice is the resource. You have 2 bags of rice, whereas you have 5 people to make food for. So 2 bags of rice is not enough. You will need more than 2 bags. So allocation of resources or how we can distribute what we want to use is the main worry that economics deals with. And with that, economics deals with the choices we make about resources. So imagine I want to make food for 5 people. Will I just decide to make it for 2 people and let the other 3 people go hungry? Or will I split the 2 bags into equal halves and then feed all the 5 people? That is my choice. The choices we make according to the resources we have, economics deals with those as well. Now, let's just learn about basic terms related to economics. So, scarcity. So, scarcity is the problem, which means lack of resources. When you have the idea that you want to present, you have something you want to make, but you do not have the resources you need to do that. Choice. Choice are the decisions you make based on the resources you have. And incentives. So incentives are something like they're a motivating factor. Let's say you are making food for 5 people. Let's just take the same example. Now, will you make the food for free or will you make it better if somebody is paying you or giving you the money for it? You will, of course, you will do it if you're receiving money. And that is your incentive. It is a motivating factor. Now, production, distribution, and consumption. So production is the manufacturing of the product that you want to make or any service. Even like let's take Ola as an example. If if somebody wants to become an Ola driver, they have to get a car and that car has to be produced by a company. So that is the production process. Now for distribution, the company has to give these cars to the Ola drivers. How they will do it is the distribution process and the consumption. Now, consumption depends entirely on the person who is getting the product. how they want to use that product. Will the person become an Ola driver with that car, or will he start his own service? That is his own choice. Now, microeconomics. So, within economics, we have a few entities or a few objects you can say, and those are individuals, households, and firms. Individuals, as in you and me, and household is a group of individuals. So, let's say in today's household, you can say a family is an entire household, the parents, the children, everything. The entire income of the household will be calculated by using the total spendings of all the people in that household. And firms. Firms are, you can say, some kind of organized households. They have a ranking system, like they have the head of the company, and they are someone who decides what to produce, how to produce, and for who you're going to produce. Now, macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is basically an expansion of microeconomics, but here instead of smaller units, you're dealing with bigger units, such as countries or maybe the entire world. Now, let's come to the fundamental concepts of wants and desires. So, wants are something that you will like, but you need not necessarily have it. Like, okay, I go to a shop, I want to have chips, but I don't have the necessity to have chips. I just want to have it. And when you want to have it, and when you have the money to buy it, and you have the specific time period or the means to buy it, that is called a desire. So when a want is something that you can make true, is called a desire. Now we have needs and necessities. So needs are fundamental requirements for survival and well-being, like food, water, shelter. But then necessities are the things that you require to meet those needs. So a need is something like a basic shelter, water, food. And a necessity is something that will help you acquire the water, shelter, and food, like labor, construction, anything. That is a necessity. Now, a fundamental necessity is something that if the person lacks or if you do not have the fundamental necessity, you cannot have the need that you want. And because of that, the quality of life or how you live will decrease. So here's a small table on needs, wants, and demands. A need is a basic survival requirement of human beings, that is food, shelter, and others. A want is based on an individual's personality and culture. So this basically stretches the point that a want is something that you desire or you wish to have, but you don't really need to have it. But then you still have the means to buy it, and you can buy it, so you do buy it. And a demand is a customer's desire. So a demand and want is basically the same thing, but then a want becomes a demand when there is also a supplier in the market. Like let's say you want a car, so that is a want. But then in the place you're living, if there is a company that is willing to make the car and give it to you, that is a supplier. So they're supplying it to you. So because of this, your want becomes a demand. Now, wants versus needs, a contradiction. So usually wants and needs are something that always go against each other. Because want is something that you can have, you want to have, but then you can live without it as well. But a need is something that you cannot live without. So let's just read a few basic concepts related to the, versus relationship of wants and needs. Prioritization conflict. Humans often prioritize wants over needs. So let's say you go to a mall. You see something that you truly need. That is a jacket, let's say, and that's for winters. But then you also see a pretty dress next to it, or you see expensive shoes or an expensive watch. People often go to buy the watch or the dress which will increase the standard in the society. But they often ignore that something that they need for survival. You can survive without a fancy dress in winters, but you cannot survive without a jacket. So immediate versus long term. So wants are typically driven by short-term emotions or cravings. So when a person wants to prioritize his wants, you don't think about the future. Like let's say you want to buy an expensive car. A car is a depreciating asset. That means with time, the value of a car decreases. If you buy it for let's say 4 lakhs now, in the future it will be only worth about 2 or 1 lakh after 10 or 20 years. but then you just want to have it, so you go ahead and buy it. You don't think about the long term. So you want a car now, you spend 4 lakhs on it. 10 years later, it's worth 2 lakhs. So over the course of 10 years, you have got a loss of 2 lakh rupees. But these 2 lakh rupees can be used for many other things. You can invest it, you can get more money, you can put it in the stock market, or you can just save it for yourself. Now, blurred lines. Modern marketing often convinces consumers that a want has to be fulfilled. So advertisement tells you that, okay, my product is good, you also want it, you can come get it, or rather you have to come get it. So it is more of a psychological technique that is used to make you get the product. And this often makes you waste money on it, even if you don't need it at all. And the need for excess. So the definition of needs has been expanded, making it harder to distinguish between essential survival and comfort. This basically stretches on the explanation of needs and wants. So usually you prioritize something that is comfortable for you. Like, this is a very vague example, it's not a detailed example, but then you see two beds in front of you. One, you just have to sleep on it, and it costs much lesser. But then the other one has a heating machine, it has many cushions. So you would go for the one with the cushions and the heating machine. You want the comfort. And that is viable, that is justifiable, because nowadays the world is tough. You need to have comfort to some extent. But then when you go for the other bed, you're saving a lot of money. It is sticking to your needs, it is fulfilling your need, but it won't fulfill your comfort to the same level. So this is termed as the need for excess. And we can just take a look at a few common examples given here. So food, you need nutrients, but want like expensive, unhealthy meals. So let's say you can eat dal chawal, you can eat anything else, you can eat chole, roti, you can survive with that. But what we often do is we go out, we buy unhealthy food, which is way more expensive, like burgers, pizzas, and chips. Shelter. You need a safe place to live in, but want a luxurious penthouse. So nowadays, people in this economy, the prices are very high. But some people still want to buy big houses instead of the ones that meet their needs and they're suitable and can live in. This creates somewhat of a conflict between simplicity and comfort. Simplicity is like, you have a good house, you have everything that you need in it, it is comfortable, so you will live with it, and it costs much lesser. But then when you go for excess comfort or just luxurious houses, that means you have a pool, you have a warming system, but you do not need all that. You can survive without that as well. And then finance. You need to save for the future, but want to spend money on instant pleasures. So you can invest money, you can have a lot, like you can split the money, like if you have 20,000, 5,000 can be used now, 15,000 can be invested. Over time, that will give you about, you can say over 2 years, you will have 30,000. But then what we usually do is we spend on instant pleasure, that is a want. You see chips, you want chips, so you'll spend on it. You see a bike, you like the bike, you will spend on it, but you do not think about the future. Like, what if you invested it? What if you saved up, you compromised a want, and then you could invest it? This just gives you more money. So here I have a small video on needs versus wants.
Hey everybody, I am Gurpreet and you are watching The Differences. In this video, we will talk about the differences between needs and wants. So friends, without further ado, let's get started. There are a number of things in our life which we use on a daily basis. They are either our needs or wants. Can you classify what are your needs and what are your wants? Ask yourself, the mobile phone that you use, is it a need or a want? Do we need it for our survival or are we just using it to stay connected with our loved ones? So we are going to start with the term needs first. Friends, need is something that has to be there to ensure survival and minimal well-being. It represents necessity to live a healthy life and function properly. One greatest example of need is food and water. Because without these two, no person on the earth can survive. The type of food may vary across cultures, but it has to be available for the survival. In ancient times, there were only three basic needs of a man: That includes food, clothing, and shelter. But with the passage of time, other things also became an important human need. The most basic human needs are the ones which are essential for the existence of mankind. These are necessary for physical and mental wellness. They vary depending upon the situation. They are of two types, that is physiological needs and safety needs. Talking about physiological needs, which are absolutely necessary for one's survival, this includes oxygen, food, water, and sleep. On the other hand, safety needs are the ones which ensure constant ability to meet the physiological needs. This includes housing, clothing, medical care, and education. Moving on to wants. Wants are infinite. They keep on increasing because of the addition in the wants due to increase in new inventions and discoveries. Also, people love to raise their standard of living and comforts. They have a habit of accumulating things beyond their present need. Human want refers to the effective desire for a particular item which a person likes to have, meaning that he has the capacity and willingness to fulfill them. We can satisfy such desires by making efforts to acquire them. However, wants are not absolutely necessary to sustain life. In other words, wants are the things that we love to have, but we can live without it as well. They make our lives more enjoyable and comfortable. Moving on to characteristics of wants. Human wants have no end. This means that when one want is satisfied, another want takes its place. So the cycle continues. Next, human wants are complementary. As a number of wants are created at the same time, suppose you want to go for a vacation. For that, we must buy tickets for flight and book a hotel. So we want things in group. Next, wants are satire. This means even wants are infinite. One can satisfy a particular want subject to there are means to satisfy those wants. Wants are alternative. That is, one or the other good can replace a want. Suppose we are feeling hungry. We can have burger, pizza, or even dosa. There are many alternatives to satisfy a want. Next, wants are competing in nature. This means one want competes with another for our choice. We have limited money to spend, but we have got so many things to do with it. Hence, priority-wise, we make choice between wants as to which of them we want to be fulfilled first. Further, which one of our wants are to be fulfilled relies on our purchasing power, that is, how much we could pay for it. Next, want does not remain fixed. They multiply over time. With the advancement of technology and even social media, there is an increase in wants for items like gadgets, vacations, modern amenities, etc. Next, wants often recur and they need to be fulfilled every time they occur. This is applicable to most of our routine expenditures which rise again and again. Wants may differ. With the change in age, wants change. As kids, we want toys, color pens, etc. But as we grow and become adults, we want motorbike, laptop, mobile phone, car, etc. Similarly, the want of a girl and a boy also differ, even if they are of same age. Wants of people belonging to different cultures also differ. Coming to the difference between needs and wants. Meaning, needs are the basic requirements which are necessary to be fulfilled for the purpose of survival. On the other hand, wants represent something that an individual likes to have to improve his or her quality of life. Next, nature. Needs are limited, but wants are unlimited. By this, we mean to say that there are only a few things that we can count on our fingertips that are necessary for our survival. However, the wants are infinite, they multiply over time. Next, while need represents something that you must have, wants represent something that you would like to have. Hence, needs represents necessity, but wants represents desire or urge. Next, needs are essential for a person's survival. On the contrary, wants are inessential for a person's survival.
Right, so that is just a summary of what we discussed before. And before I move ahead into the concept of debt and debt trap, I just want to ask if anybody of you have, any questions about what we just finished up till now. Okay, then I guess since you have no questions, I'll just go ahead with the next topic. Right, so debt. Before we understand what debt is, let's just understand what a deferred payment is. So let's say you go to a shop, and usually nowadays in India, the shops like, Kirana shops and the general stores, we know the person there. Or even if we do not know the person there, we can just go and say that I want this now. You write my name down, you write my phone number down, I'll pay this to you later, right? Now let's say the chips packet is 10 rupees today. You do not have the money and you take the packet. You tell the shopkeeper to write it down so that you can pay it the next time you come. But then the next time you come, the company has stopped making those packets. That means the packets are very rare to find and the value of them has gone up. Now the shopkeeper asks you to pay 15 rupees instead of 10 because even for the shopkeeper to buy it, it is costing him more. So the difference of 5 rupees is the debt that you have to pay, and the 10 rupees is the loan. You took a loan of 10 rupees. After a while, you did not expect for it to go up, and now you have to pay 5 rupees more than what you actually took. Yeah. So the value of the chips has increased, and your purchasing power or the power of your money has decreased, which means you are now stuck in something that you cannot pay even more. First, you are not able to pay 10 rupees, and now you won't be able to pay 15 rupees, which is more than what you took. Now, within debt, let's look at the main concepts. So, an obligation. So, an obligation is the commitment to make to somebody that, okay, I assure you, I will come and I will pay it to you the next time. So, it is a sort of promise, and it is not necessarily, has to be written on paper, but then even if you say it, it still counts. And then parties. A debtor is the borrower. That means the one who is taking the loan. In this case, when you ask the shopkeeper to write it down for later, you are the borrower. And a creditor or the lender. He lent you the packet. That means he gave it to you for free, but then he asked you to pay 10 rupees later. So he lent you the packet. Indirectly, he is lending you the money. And then components of loan. So typically includes the original amount plus interest. Here, the original amount was 10 rupees. You initially had to pay 10 rupees at the beginning, but then at the end, you had to pay 15 rupees. So the interest here was 5 rupees. So interest is basically the difference between the amount you pay later after a time and the amount you originally had to pay. Now, this depends on something called the rate of interest. Like when you take a loan of 10,000 rupees, the bank also wants to earn its money. So the bank tells you, okay, fine, you can take this 10,000 rupees. But then once you have fulfilled whatever you wanted, that means, okay, if you want to buy a car, let's say, once you have got the car, you have fulfilled your want. Now I also want profit. So you give me 12,000 rupees and I will take that 2,000 rupees for myself. The need for debt, financing needs. So to buy things they can't afford. Like, okay, you cannot afford something now, it's very expensive, but you have to have it. You cannot survive without it. So in this case, you take a loan. Now, this loan, when you cannot repay it or give it back to the bank or the lender in time, it becomes debt. Business growth. Companies use debt to fund projects and operations. So a company does not always have the amount of money it needs to make something. Like let's say Reliance, they have to make a new product or buy another company for their benefit. They may not have the amount of money they need, so they will take a loan, and this loan will put them in a debt. That means the amount of money they have to give back. After a while, when the new company earns them the money, they can repay it. And then government funding. So governments issue loans to fund infrastructure. This is usually done with contractors. So a contractor may say, you give me this, I will take the money and I will make this for you. And the contractor has no profit in it. So once the government lends the loan, after a while, a contractor pays back the loan. And in this case, the margin of interest or the rate of interest will be very less, as it's something done for the government's own purpose. Now let's look at how you can manage debt. So as a household, debt is very common in India. Most of the people, they do not know how to manage their money. They overpay, they go for wants over what they actually need, and this puts them in a debt. So we'll be looking at budgeting, debt trap, and financial well-being. So here's a image you can see. So debt is like a liability. You have to clear it. After a point, you cannot just ignore it. It will always be with you. And this in turn, it impacts your status in the society. It impacts your development. You cannot go, attend something or do something for your own purpose. And this also impacts your health. Debt actually has more of a mental health impact on many things than getting fired from a job, or losing a seat in a major event or anything. So this is a simple explanation of what is debt.
Wall Street bully. What is debt? Debt is money that an individual, a company, or a government borrows from another party for a specific purpose or an unforeseen event. They also make a promise to pay back that money to the lender over time, plus a little extra money called interest. What are the types of debt? For individuals, the main types of debt are credit card debt, mortgages, student loans, car or auto loans, and personal loans. Companies can borrow money by issuing secured or unsecured bonds of different durations and interest rates, or coupon payments. This is called corporate debt. Similarly, governments can borrow money by issuing debt instruments like treasury bills, T-bills, treasury bonds, T-bonds, and treasury notes, T-notes. Since the government bonds are backed by the government's promise, they are less risky and therefore pay less interest than corporate bonds. Who can lend money? Banks, credit unions, and credit card companies can give loans to individuals. Companies can get loans from banks or borrow from the general public by issuing bonds. Governments can borrow from international banks like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, or raise money from individuals, corporations, and other governments by issuing treasury instruments. Why would anyone take on debt? Debt is useful for meeting the shortfall between income and expenses. For individuals, it could range anywhere from credit card debt to big life-changing debt like a mortgage or student loan. For companies, debt might be a better way to raise money for large purchases than issuing additional shares and diluting their ownership. Similarly, when government income is not enough to fund large projects, they can cover the difference by taking on debt. Thank you very much, Wall Street Bully. You're welcome, Super Cooper. Remember, finance is your friend. If you enjoyed this video,
Right. So when we have now understood the concept of debt, now comes debt trap. And debt trap is something that actually puts you into debt. It's like a cycle of borrowing and then not being able to pay it back. So it's like getting stuck in a hole. It's when you borrow money, but the interest keeps adding up. So when we previously discussed the example of chips, you borrowed the money, let's say 10 rupees, which was the 10 rupees of chips packet, and the second time you came back, you had to pay 15 rupees. Now let's say you tell him, okay, I'll pay it later. I don't have 15 rupees right now. Let me, come back after 3 days. I'll pay the 15 rupees to you. But since the packet was already rare, the price has gone up even more now. It is now 20 rupees. So now the interest keeps adding up over time. It is not, constant for all the years. Like if now the interest was 5 rupees, now then the interest is 10 rupees. If you keep delaying it, it might increase to even 20 or 30 rupees, which is almost three times the value or four times the value of what you previously, purchased. Now, debt trap shows up in few ways. Personal finance. So, high interest loans. When you take a loan from, let's say, a private bank because you're too afraid of going for a government bank or a government body, they lend you the money, but they charge very, very high rates of interest. A government bank or a government agent might charge you, let's say, 5% interest on 1 lakh of borrowing. But the same thing if you borrow from anybody else or a public bank or just a citizen, any other citizen or any other person, they might charge you about 12 times the amount or 12% of interest. That is because they have to look over their own profit. But the government looks after social well-being. It won't take more than it actually needs you to. Now you pay mostly interest, barely touching the principal. So the principal is 10,000, but here the 10,000 let's say the principal is 10,000, right? If you're investing 10,000 or you're borrowing the principal amount, which is 10,000, you take a loan from a bank. But after a time, if you keep delaying it, the debt will increase and the principal amount gets shadowed. You had to pay 10,000 back, but with interest, you ignored it for 3 years. Now you have to pay 30,000. So the interest you have to pay is 20,000, and that is twice the amount of what you initially borrowed. So this just keeps going on and going on until you reach a point where you cannot repay the debt. And then in this case, the banks or the governments may take something you own, like your house or your car or a fridge, depending on the amount. And this is called a mortgage. When you cannot pay back the debt, your items get taken by the government as a security. Like, I have your thing, you are definitely going to pay this back to me. If you don't, I will sell this. And the government usually sells it off or auctions it, from which they get way more money. Now, countries and geopolitics. So, a country borrows big money. This is usually done by smaller countries. They borrow it from bigger countries as a loan so that they can develop their own infrastructure and economy. Like, if let's say a country like Afghanistan has to improve its infrastructure, they will take loan from the United States because the United States has a very rich economy. When they get the loan, they will fulfill their want, that is making the infrastructure possible, developing the country, and after a while they will pay it back. And usually the countries are charged very low rates of interest, but because the loan is usually, given as a social grant or a grant of, okay, you can use it for your own well-being, but after a while, I will also have my investors invest money in your infrastructure, and I will take that money from you, but I will not charge you a big rate of interest. Now, why is it so sticky? Interest compounds quietly. So, without knowing, the interest keeps increasing. When you went for the example of chips, you knew that you bought chips for 10 rupees, but you did not know that the price would keep increasing. So, debt often goes unnoticed because the interest keeps increasing without your knowledge. Now, short term relief feels necessary. So you prioritize your wants over needs. This is the same concept of, do we actually need something and do we actually want to have something? What's the difference? So usually you go for luxuries or instant pleasures. You want something that will instantly satisfy your needs. You don't think about the future, even if you're not able to pay for it in the present. And this puts you in debt. And options shrink the longer it goes on. So when the interest keeps increasing, your options of how to pay it back or reduce the debt will decrease dramatically. Like your interest was 5 rupees, right? So you can actually ask another person to lend you 5 rupees. You can give the 5 rupees back to the shopkeeper. After a while, when you have 5 more rupees, you can give it back to the same person. But if it goes to about 50 rupees, this is 4 times the amount you actually had to, pay. So this becomes impossible to pay as nobody is going to lend you 40 rupees, let's say, for just a chips packet, because they know that if you could not pay the 10 rupees in the first place, you are never going to be able to pay the 40 rupees. Now, coming out of a debt trap. So a debt trap is a loop, but then that loop can be broken. So stop the bleeding. This is basically how to put an immediate stop on debt trap. So before you buy anything fancy, you have to make sure that your debt is not increasing. If you're already in debt, let's say the chips packet example again, you have a 5 rupee debt. You won't go and buy another chips packet of, let's say, 10 or 15 rupees. You won't buy anything. You will be happy with the chips packet you have, and you will wait till you have the money so you can repay it. This is basically saying that you immediately have to stop your wants and focus on your needs and get a crystal clear on the debt. You have to know everything about the debt you have to pay. So avoiding the numbers is super common and superhuman, but clarity is power here. If you have big amounts of debt, you usually keep avoiding them, that it's okay, I'll pay it later, I will definitely have it. But this is the main problem. When you keep avoiding it, in the background, the interest keeps going up. And you never know it's going up because you don't really take a look at it as you have avoided it. And then when you go back to it after a long time, you're shocked that, oh my God, I have to pay this much. So this is something that has to be avoided. And then you have to always know who you owe the amount to. the amount you owe, and the rate of interest. Choose a payoff strategy. So there are two techniques to paying off debt. One is a snowball technique. So if you have multiple debts, let's say, you will pay the smaller amounts first, and this will give you a kind of motivation that, okay, I have cleared this amount of debt. I only need to clear the bigger amounts, which I can do in some time. Then you have the avalanche mode. That is when you pay the high interest or the high amounts of debt first, and then you get to the lower sections of debt, and this usually takes way longer than the snowball method. But again, it depends on the economy you live in, the amount you have to pay, and the number of debts you have taken or the number of loans you took. Now, lower the interest. Let's say you are buying something from let's say a car showroom. You take a loan of 10,000 rupees from one bank, which is at a 12% rate of interest. But if another bank is giving you the same amount at 9% rate of interest, you will always go with the lower rate of interest because that will reduce the amount you have to pay in debt. So this has to be done before you take a loan, but if you have not done that, you can still reduce the rate of interest later. Now there are many ways to do it. You can just ask the person you borrowed from, like, hey, I'm facing a difficulty right now. Can you please lower the rate of interest? In the future, I may, owe this to you as a favor. Or you can ask for hardship programs. So, many agents and government bodies, they offer something called hardship programs. When you're facing financial difficulties, they will provide you a temporary relief, and this usually does not have a rate of interest on it. Like you have to pay 2000 as interest to a bank. You can go to the government, you can, show them all your proofs, all your files. You can say that, hey, I do not have 2000 right now, but I really need to clear the debt before it increases. So they will give you a temporary relief. They will lend you 2000 rupees. You will use this 2000 rupees to clear the debt you had. So now you have no debt. You just have to pay the 2000 rupees you took. And this usually comes with a negative rate of interest, or they might not charge you any interest at all, as we said, but they will definitely expect something in return. Like they might have you keep a jewelry or something with them, or a fridge or a car, which over time, when you earn, you can clear it off. Now look into balance transfers only if you can stop new spending. So before you get to clearing debt, you have to find ways to stop the new spending. Like you have to figure out how you can stop spending on other things or new things when you're already in debt. And credit counseling. Many NGOs like non-profit organizations, they offer you counseling or just free financial advice on how you can clear the debt. And sometimes when you ask them to, they may actually, negotiate with the banks and government on your side. Yeah, sorry about that. Now, create a breathing room, not a perfect budget. There is never a way to clear debt when you're aiming for a very high target or a precise target. You will always have ups and downs. So it's necessary that you have a margin of error and you create a small comfort space. Like instead of clearing the debt on things like a car or a house, you can clear the debt on essentials like a ration or food or anything if you have debt on them. But it is always good to clear the debt on essentials first because what you need more are the essentials other than the wants. And fix the trap, not just the debt. So clearing of debt does not get you out of the debt trap cycle. You are still in the cycle. Now you have to, figure out how you can get out of that cycle. The main part is you have to ask yourself questions. Why did I get into debt? Was it income instability? Was I not earning enough? Or what was happening? Was it emergencies with no buffer? Did you have a period of emergencies like healthcare sicknesses without any breaks between them? Right. And then were you helping others at your own cost? Usually your friends come to you to ask you that, hey, I need this right now. Can you please give me 20 rupees or 30 or how much ever? And they never pay it back. And this just puts you in a loss while they keep gaining without anything to give you. So when you help others, it's a good thing, but it should always be done in a quantity that you can, handle, or that doesn't put you in such a big loss that you can never recover from. And then comes emotional spending during stress. So many people who, are suffering from mental health disorders such as anxiety and all, they need a lot of comfort places. And these are usually not found at home or school or at office. They invest in things like, virtual reality sets, which may, put them in a game or a video game, which is different from real life, or they might go on very expensive vacations, and this can put them in debt. Now, let's just take a gentle reality check on how debt repayment works. It takes time. Repaying debt is not something that can be done in a few days or a few weeks. It always takes a lot of time, maybe more than 9 months, more than a year, more than 2 years. But at the end of it, it has to be done in a capacity that you can handle and in a way that does not actually put you back into more debt. It is rarely linear. So debt usually keeps increasing. It is not something that keeps, constant over a long period of time. But that may happen in cases of government loans where sometimes under government schemes they don't charge you any interest at all. And debt repayment does not require superhuman discipline. You can pay back the debt on your own terms. Like you can say, okay, I want to pay the student loan off first because I have an education, I have finished my education. It is important that I clear this debt so I can focus on working on my job and from that job when I get more money, I can clear the other loans I have. Or you can say, let me just get rid of the healthcare loans and debts first so that once they are gone and the other loans are much lesser, I can clear them. Right. So let's just take a dive into the phases of clearing debt. So first phase is exhale. That is basically just realize your current scenario. Don't immediately after clearing debt just, start spending again. You're supposed to maintain that when you get out of the debt trap. You cannot keep spending more. Now, once you have cleared debt, you can take a relief, but then it must not be done to an extent that gets you back into the debt. You can keep saving up for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. And when you have enough savings, then you can think about what you have to spend on. Right. So build a never again buffer. A buffer in terms of money management is a fund which you can use whenever you want, but it only has to be used for emergencies. Like many things happen unexpectedly. It is important to have a reserve. So if you're earning about 20 to 30,000 per month, it is important that you keep at least 5,000 for emergencies and divide the rest into ration, healthcare, and other needs. But there must always be a buffer fund with you. And this fund does not have any restrictions. Whenever there's an emergency, whenever you feel the need to pay something immediately, or you don't have time to clear anything, you can use money from this fund. But this fund is only usable if you keep saving into it. After a while, if you just let it be constant and don't keep saving amounts into it, then it's going to be useless. You don't have to necessarily like put 1 lakh of savings into the buffer fund. It can be 5,000 every month, it can be 10,000 every year, or it can be, let's say, 1 lakh over a period of 5 years. But it has to be there. A buffer is always necessary to help you escape. Now, automate your payments and bills. So, many times when you don't automate your payments, bills, and savings, you keep, going back into your books, you keep checking them that now I have to pay this, I have to save this, now I have to deposit this. That shouldn't happen. That just leads to a lot of mental stress, which will then cause a lot of hasty decisions or errors. Like, for an example, if you keep having to manage a lot of other tasks and now you're coming to managing money, you're not fresh, you're really stressed. So you might make an error with the account book, which may cause you to, deposit an incorrect amount or way more than you were supposed to. Now you have to rebuild your trust with your money. So before you get into high degrees of spending or investment, it is important that you plan out how you're going to use your money. You can make a chart or a table or anything that you want. You can list out your needs like housing, healthcare, loans for education, and other things. You have to divide your money into these. If you do not do that, the buffer will also be affected as the buffer will not have enough transactions to actually help you later and grow. Don't rush. So usually when people get a lot of money or they have escaped debt and now they're earning profitably, you genuinely try to, go and buy things on wants again. You forget about the needs. People generally rush toward the luxuries, like, hey, I have money now. Why should I worry about other things? I can just go buy expensive things. But you're not supposed to rush. You're supposed to grow. This you can do in ways like retirement accounts. You can set up an entire account different from any other fund or any other savings, which will be solely for retirement. After your retirement, what will you be doing? Will I have enough money to fund my own, hobbies or interests? So that retirement fund is essential, but it's not mandatory. It can depend on what a person wants. Long-term investing. So when you invest money in stock markets, even if it's a small amount, after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, after a lot of patience and waiting, it can actually give you double or triple or maybe even four times the amount you actually invested, even if it was a small amount. So investing for long term or investing for long periods, instead of focusing on things that you don't really need, will give you a lot more money, a lot more scope for savings, and a lot more scope for funding important decisions and activities rather than entering the debt trap. And skill upgrades or income growth. So you can always learn from online finance courses on how you can manage your money or how to grow your income. Nowadays, one stream of income is not, essential, or let's say it does not make you competent in the society. Let's say your primary stream of income is your job. You're earning, let's say, 2 lakhs a year from that job. That is not enough. As the price keeps growing, there's inflation, there's a lot of other things that impact the economy. So you need to have more than two streams of income. You can start a side job, like you like something called baking or playing cricket. You can teach people online how to play cricket, earn things from that, or you can start a baking business, which will be small scale. You can do it in your house, make small cupcakes, sell it. But this will also give you money, which may be very small. It may not be as much as your primary stream, which was your job. But after a while, this will accumulate, and you will realize that it's actually making a very big impact. Now, identify your danger zones. You have to know where you keep spending. Is it on lifestyle, that do you prioritize your lifestyle more than your quality of life? Now, you may think that these are the two same things, but these are very different. Lifestyle is how you live on the basis of what your social status in the society is. But then, your quality of life is what your actual comforts are. So it's always better to prioritize on how you want to live rather than how you want to appear in the society. So a lifestyle creep is basically an error in your lifestyle which will, cause you to go into debt or spend on things you don't really need. Helping family too much. Many people in India, because of sentiments or, social needs, they just keep helping the family without thinking about their own status. And after a while, if you've lended, 45 lakhs or 50 lakhs to your family just for funding their fund, you will realize that you do not have anything for yourself. You don't have a buffer, you don't have a retirement account. So I'm not necessarily saying that helping your family is bad, but it has to be done in your own capacity with proper thinking. Over optimism about future income. So let's just compare this with marks. You're 3 months before your exams, and now you're confident that it's okay, I have 3 months, I can study, I'll get above 90%. You waste time. Now you're 2 months before your exams. You're like, it's okay, I can still study, I have time, I'll study for extra hours, I'll study, in tuition, I'll attend more tuition, I'll somehow get above 85%. Now, fast forward to 1 week before your exam, you look back to the moment when you had 3 months, you realize that you did not do anything, you did not study, you did not prepare for the exam, and now you're praying to God whether you'll pass or fail. So this is a cycle that continues in finance as well. You keep thinking that your income in the future will increase, but that may not happen. It may drastically decrease, and that will put you in debt again. So let's talk about the mindset shift that changes everything. We always have to transition from what we actually, do not need or what is just a want, we can live without it, to spending majorly on necessities. You have to go from how do I get out of trouble, that is, how do I keep, minimizing these errors and how do I actually get out of them on a repeated basis, to how do I make money boring and predictable. That is basically that you have to get so comfortable with money management and debt that you realize that, okay, even if I was in debt, even if I am in debt, after a while, I'll be able to recover from it. And trust me, the mindset shift may not sound like a very big thing, but it actually has a major impact. When you have that confidence in yourself, it will actually push you to do more things and you can easily gain or grow your income. So let's just design a segregation system for out of getting out of debt. Once you have got out of debt, now you need to, divide your life or you divide the income of your life into buckets. So there's a four bucket system, but it's clean, boring, and effective. This will just streamline your money management. Now, one there's bills bucket, that is non-negotiables. In this goes the money or the fund that you cannot negotiate on. That is, let's say your rent, your utilities such as basic bathing water, Wi-Fi, food, ration, and your insurance, healthcare insurance, or the subscriptions you truly use. Many people use subscriptions for apps like Canva to fund their professional needs. That is not a useless subscription. It's helping you with something that's very productive. But if you have a TV show that you can find on Netflix as well as on Prime, and you are subscribed to both of them, that is a waste of money. You could subscribe to one, you could watch the TV show, and you may not need to, have a lifetime subscription or a 1 year long subscription. Nobody actually uses it for that long. You can buy a 1 month subscription, you can see how many times you use it. Depending on that, you can decide on how many times you need to subscribe per year or how long you need to subscribe for. Transport and basic food. So transport is a basic necessity. Of course, we need it to go for work, college, and that is non-negotiable. So rules. Fund this first. Always the necessity bucket has to be funded big at the beginning. Let's say you have 20,000 as an income. You have to put the first 5,000, 4,000, how much ever you decide, into this bucket. That is the non-negotiables. And this money cannot go deviated. You have to spend it on the non-negotiables. You have to use it on your necessities. Then comes the safety bucket. So a safety bucket is basically the buffer, but a buffer which is some kind of, a necessity as well. It sounds very confusing, but it's actually not. So when we have things like healthcare or other emergency funds and insurances, you can actually use your safety fund to fund these needs. You don't have to spend from the other things like, compromising your instant pleasures or compromising something from your, uh, from your non-negotiables. You don't have to go down on your rent. You do not have to go down on your transport. That is only if you maintain the safety bucket. So lifestyle creep defense. This basically defends you when something goes wrong with your lifestyle. And this bucket exists for the future. This is only when you need it and in case of medical emergencies or job emergencies if there's layoffs or anything. Then comes the freedom bucket. This is for the long-term lifestyle. Here you'll think about your retirement, your investments, which are for the long term, like in stock markets and trading, your skill upgrades and education. Let's say after college or after you finish your bachelor's degree, you want to pursue further education. And you will have to save up for this. So this goes in the freedom bucket. Then in the future, if you want to learn more things, you can still spend from here. And then big future goals. If you have goals like in the future, I can actually start my own company or make my own shop or anything, this can be funded from the freedom bucket as well. So this is totally the fund which is for your future. This is for the future and for your personal needs, not for any non-negotiables or necessities. And the enjoyment bucket. So money management does not necessarily mean that you have to, sacrifice your joys or anything that you have fun doing. Let's say you have fun playing cricket, or let's say you have fun just singing. You can invest in those as well. You can invest in your hobbies, you can invest in your travels. But again, there has to be a special fund for that. And that is your enjoyment bucket. This is something that even if you spend out of, you won't really feel bad for it because you know you have the other three buckets which are there for your usual lifestyle. Right. So let's just learn a bit about lifestyle creeps and defenses. Lifestyle upgrades require a waiting period. So let's say any upgrade over a set amount, which is if you expect your income to be increased, if you want your income to be increased and you want to do something for it, you wait 30 to 90 days. If you still want that to happen, then you realize that it's not just a mere want, it's something that you really want to have or something that you really need. So this just involves the skill of patience. You have to look after a long period of time. You cannot think about what you want instantly and you cannot act upon it. That is basically like decision myopia. You only see what is in front of you. You do not look at the things that may concern you in the future. Now, raises is not equal to the new normal. So, if you increase the amount in your freedom bucket, or let's just say your income increases, that does not become your new normal. You cannot change the way you think, and you cannot change the way you save your money. It has to keep going in the same way. Increasing the money in the buckets, like let's say you increase the money in your freedom bucket, that does not mean that you let the money in the other buckets go down. Either it has to go up or it has to stay at the same level. This will decide how you can spend your money, and it will make sure that at any point of time in your life you have enough for your necessities, you have enough to spend on things for your future, you have enough as a safety or as a buffer, and you have enough to enjoy. One in, one out. So this is basically recurring expenses. If you did not, if you did not buy chips, or if you did not buy the second packet of chips from the previous example, that's fine. But if you are willing to buy a second packet of chips and you also want chocolates, you have to let go of the chocolates. You cannot keep spending. You have to decide on what you want and you have to make the choice based on that. And then comes the most important definition of enough. You need to decide mentally and physically what is enough for you, where you can stop and where you can, basically live a free, comfortable life. You should not spend beyond the definition of enough. Let's say for me, enough is like, having a good meal, having a comfortable house, and I do not need anything more luxurious. So I will not spend above that. Where it fulfills my needs, I will stop, I will start investing. So weekly and monthly rhythm. This is basically about how you can track your income, and you can check weekly. Did I steal from myself? You can just go through over the funds you set up for yourself. You can say, did I spend less or did I spend way more than I wanted to? And if you're doing it monthly, you can refill the buckets. That is, just put new money into the funds, go over what you want and what you don't want. Review enjoyment spending. That is, you can review your freedom bucket. You can take a look at it again. If you feel that you do not need that much amount in the freedom bucket and you need a bit lesser than that, you can always take that other amount extra. You can divide it proportionally and put it into the other three buckets. This won't necessarily do you any harm. This will just give you more confidence and security for the future. And then comes the quiet goal. You're not trying to look rich. Again, this is not about luxurious lifestyle. This is something that is about how you want to live and how you can actually live a stable life. You do not have to go about, buying expensive things. The main goal you're trying to achieve is that first, your bills have to look boring. If you look at a bill or you look at a loan, you do not have to worry about, oh my God, how am I going to save this? Or how am I going to save myself from this bill? When am I going to pay it and how am I going to pay it? It should be that, okay, I have a fund with me. I can always, pay the bill.
अभी मेरे रूम पर आ सकते हो
Right. And then emergencies don't scare you. This is reliant on the emergency fund. Even if there's an emergency in your life, it should not scare you. You should always know that you have something to pay it off with. And then fun doesn't cause guilt. When you have a freedom bucket, you won't be guilty about the fact that you're spending. Spending for yourself or funding your pleasures does not make you guilty or does not make you, a criminal. It just makes you a human being. And then income increases should not change your identity. When your income increases, you should not spend more than you need. You should keep saving and your mentality should not change. Right. So decide your buffer. When your buffer fund is way too small, it causes anxiety. Let's say a good buffer can be around 1 lakh to 2 lakh rupees for a period of 2 to 3 years. If you have just 10,000, this will cause you anxiety. Like, okay, I have an emergency. How am I going to fund it? Because I do not have anything from my emergency fund to use. But if you have a decent enough buffer, which is, let's say, the right amount you need, which is 2 or 3 lakhs, you will use that at the right amount of time, and this will not give you any anxiety or any depression. But then when you have a very big buffer, which is way more than you need, let's say you have 10 lakhs in buffer, you will actually start using this excess amount to fund your personal needs without a stop, and you won't even realize that. Now define what the buffer is. Your buffer is for incoming interruption and unavoidable surprises. It is just a kind of emergency fund. If your income suddenly stops, you get a layoff from a job, or let's just say there's a pandemic like COVID again, you have to, have a fund which will stay there with you even for emergency situations, and it won't, face a loss unless it doesn't need to. You won't use it unless for the worst circumstances ever. You won't use it for your vacations, lifestyle upgrades, or, just improving your quality of life. Calculate your bare minimum monthly spend, not your normal life, your survival mode life. Let's say you want 5 bags of rice per week, but then you need two bags of rice per week. That is your survival fund. So you can just calculate the minimum amount of what you can need, and that gives you your monthly bare minimum expenditure. Now, with this, it is not necessary that you have to meet that minimum expenditure or you have to go lower it. As long as you're staying around it, let's say a few thousand rupees over it, that is fine. But if it increases to, 10,000 or 20,000 over the minimum expenditure, that goes into overspending. Now split the buffer. One, there should be instant cash, like, in the form of liquidable assets in the banks or time deposits or demand deposits, which are basically the money you store in the bank. After a time, when you want them, you can take it out in the form of cash. The second one will be a true emergency fund. So this is high yield savings. A big proportion of what you're saving is going to go into the true emergency fund. And then there is a deep buffer. This is ultra safe investments or just having an other or second buffer account. You can put the money into two buffer accounts on a repeated occasion, or you can invest in some assets which are sure that they won't ever go down. This is like investing in companies related to necessities. Like let's say a company is manufacturing oxygen tanks. Those are always needed. Those won't go out of use. So you can invest in places like that where you're sure that the rise won't be too much, but there might not be any, loss at all. And then you have to know when to stop. When your buffer is ready, when your separate fund is ready for when you need it, you have to stop there. You cannot keep adding into it over a period of time where there's so much that again leads to a high buffer and causes, overspending. So, how debt affects your mental health? Now, debt causes a lot of, mental stress as well. It can impact a person's mental lifestyle because let's just take the example of India. If you're in debt, people treat it like a taboo. They're like, oh my God, you're in debt. Are you poor? Can you just not pay the money? Are you not earning enough? They degrade you in the social standard, but then that's not the case. But debt is just a small financial liability. It's not something that has to be treated, like a shameful thing or a disgrace. Now let's just look at some things that debt can cause mentally. So one is chronic background stress. When you have debt and you keep checking into it or keep looking into it, you just get to the point where you cannot stop thinking about it and you keep asking yourself, how am I going to manage this debt? What if I don't come out of the debt? What is going to happen to me? And this just causes a lot of silent stress, which even if you don't understand, it may just impact your normal studying or work or anything else. Then there's shame plus isolation. So usually people don't, share it openly with their family or friends that, hey, I have this debt. Please help me. How can I get out of it? People think that it's shameful to, not be able to pay something back. But you don't realize that there's actual economical methods of doing it. So this causes a lot of shame and isolation where you're not able to openly talk about something. There's decision fatigue. When you're already in debt, you get tired of thinking about your new expenditures. You can be like, okay, I have 10,000 in debt. Now, how am I going to pay more 5,000 to something that I want? And this is an absolute need. Let's just ignore the fact that you're talking about something that you don't want. You're talking about something like food. You're already in debt, but even here you'll compromise because you're stressed about the debt. There's anxiety and avoidance loop. So debt creates anxiety. You keep fearing the amount you have to repay, how you're gonna earn it, and this makes you really anxious in your lifestyle. But then, after a period of deep anxiety, you just avoid it. You start avoiding the debt. You just ignore it for a period of time. You're like, it's okay, I'll pay it, it's fine. You calm yourself down. Calming yourself down does not necessarily mean that it's bad, but it can still make the problem of avoidance worse. As you're not looking at it, the debt keeps increasing. And this is not about, your morals or your ethics. This is purely psychological. The brain works in this way. Avoidance isn't the fault of the person. It's just how the mind is designed to think or alarm itself in cases of depression and anxiety. Now, healing from both money and debt. Separate self-worth from net worth. So your self-worth, that is what you spend on yourself, is not the same as what you have in total. And debt, it is not something that you are. It does not define your personality. You may have to pay 1 lakh of debt, let's say, but it should not affect your personality. It should not, put you into depression or anxiety or other things. You can repay it, and there's methods of repaying it. Replace panic systems with calm systems. So mental health improves when money stops being a daily decision. You can automate your bills, your savings, and your checks or any liquidable assets that you have, that is like gold or silver, which you can trade off for money. And you can automate these processes such as savings and transactions by using a bank's online website. This will actually streamline the approach to savings and expenditures and all. You won't have to keep looking at it. After a while, you'll realize that the electronic system itself is doing that for you. And this will reduce a great amount of stress of, having to go back to it, keep checking regularly. Then just live a stress-free lifestyle, check it every month or 2 months, edit it manually, check into an account book, and then you can just take not a big look, just a superficial look at it, and then you can just live with it. Shrink the problem until it's tolerable. So your brain is designed to handle small threats rather than big ones. You won't be as scared when someone tells you that a dog is running at you than if someone tells you that a bear is running at you. So you don't have to expand the amount of expenditure. Like, I have 10,000 rupees of debt. How am I going to pay it? You have to start thinking that it's a small amount. Compare it to 1 lakh or 1 crore. 10,000 is really small in that case. Instead of worrying about the 10,000 of debt, you can be glad that you don't have 1 crore of debt. Now this calms you down and you can actually start thinking into how you can reduce the debt. Your job is to pay that amount of debt, nothing more than that, nothing less than that. And the only thing you have to be thinking about is why you have to pay it, how you will pay it, and how much the amount is. So build safety before ambition. You always have to make smaller payments and create good buffer until you can reach an amount or a point where you have to, you can pay big payoffs. That is clear the debt in big amounts. When you start small, it accumulates, builds up your confidence, and you can actually work better on other things. And the best way to deal with stress, if it's financial, educational, anything, you can talk about it. Talk to your friends, talk to someone who understands you, or just talk to your teachers or any counseling expert. Nowadays, even schools and colleges have counselors who are there to understand you, or maybe if they don't understand you, they'll just hear you out. But talking about it can always reduce the problem. A truth you might not hear. If debt has hurt your mental health, that doesn't mean you're bad with money. And debt is a very common experience. Like more than 90% of the world would have experienced debt at some point, with the other 10 people being kids, maybe the other 10% kids or just newborns. Debt is very common. It does not mean that you're bad at handling your money. It just means that you haven't, got the right approach to it. You live through instability, maybe you live through a lot of emergencies. It does not define who you are as a person. Now, when you clear debt, you're choosing growth. That does not decide that, when you were in debt, that was not a failure. Because you have come out of it, you are now growing. That just means that you can manage your stress positively and you are a good person. You can, think optimistically whenever you want to, how you want to, and that just defines you as a being. Now, money rules. No daily money checking. You don't check your money every single day. When you keep seeing every single day that, oh my God, I have 10,000 rupees to pay, I only have 1 lakh in my bank savings, I only have 10,000 in my savings, that just give you stress. Instead, you can use that time to work on, how you can keep improving that debt, or how you can get out of the debt, or you can increase your income. After a while, you'll realize that when you check every week or every month, that amount has actually reduced and your income has increased. So that's a much better way of living than just checking it every single day and living with stress. And make sure your bills get paid automatically. In this era of technology, you do not have to manually audit or log everything. You can always use the bank's help or many e-commerce sites which can actually help you pay the debt, or give you tips on increasing your expenditure. I mean, decreasing your expenditure or increasing your income as well. One safe to spend number. So instead of tracking everything, define a fixed weekly or monthly amount you can spend freely. So limit your, wants, and then you can actually decide an amount such as, let's say, I want to spend 1,000 every single month. That is how much I'm going to spend, and I won't decrease or go above it. That is a safe amount. You won't feel guilty about it. All your instant pleasures will be satisfied, and you can continue this, consistently, so you can see the results on your savings. An emergency fund is equal to untouchable. An emergency fund always, exaggerates on the meaning of emergency. You do not touch it unless you really need to. Unless it's like a very grave situation, such as there's no money in the bank, you do not have anything in your savings, a major health problem, you got fired from your job, there's a natural disaster. You do not touch your emergency fund. Every other thing can be satisfied with the freedom fund as well. Progress over punishment. If you accidentally lose track of your money management, if you overspend, if you spend way less than you intend to, or you just keep checking every single time and you realize that you have not made any progress. So you do not punish yourself over that. You think of ways to make the progress. This will give you a boost forward and you can keep thinking about ways to, increase your savings and income. And cap deprivation. Zero fund budgets damage mental health and cause rebounds. This basically means that you always have to keep a fixed amount for your freedom and joy as well. Delay big decisions when you're stressed. When you're experiencing stress or anxiety, think about the small decisions you can make. Instead of thinking about where you have to invest, how much you have to invest, you can just think about the next day. I have this assignment, I have this work. Let me just finish that. When I'm done with that, I can think about the investments. And separate past mistakes from present behavior. You were in debt, but that is not your responsibility anymore. You have paid that debt off, and you need to work on improving your quality of life and your condition. So do not think about the past debt. Work on how you can impact your future. And money conversations. If someone asks you anything about your debt, why you were in debt, you can always ignore them and tell them, I do not feel comfortable about talking with this to you. It is always someone to, better to talk to someone who understands money or who understands you rather than talk to someone who does not understand you and just question you without knowing uh, your exact situation at that time. And a simple bad day money protocol. For days when everything feels heavy or when you're stressed or there has been excessive load on you, let's say a lot of assignments from college, a lot of assignments from school, or just too much work at office, do not check your bank balances and do not make purchases over a small preset limit. So let's just say you're having a very bad week. You may feel the urge to spend excessively. I want to go buy this massage chair. I want to book myself a good session at a movie theater. I want to play very, expensive games. Do not do that. Spend with the 1,000 rupees you fixed for yourself. Spend it in that week. Finish your relaxation in that, and use other things like yoga and exercise, which comes free of cost and can actually impact your mental health and improve it as well. How you know the rules are working? You think about money less often. When you have done all this, when you have followed the protocols of money management, you have created the buckets for yourself, you have calmed yourself down mentally. you will start seeing the results. When you think about money less often, you will understand that this has actually worked, and then I can actually handle my money, I can manage it, and I can deal with the stress related to it. Fewer spikes of guilt or panic. You start panicking much lesser, and you do not feel as much guilty as you did before when all of this has paid off. And mistakes don't spiral. Your mistakes don't come back to you. Instead, they give you the teachings you need to have to, become financially more intellectual. This will just make your financial life better and you'll just have much less stressor. And this is an outcome you see from the rules and the money buckets and all the money management techniques. And you feel boringly okay most of the time. You don't have to feel, anxiously, funny or just very excited. Even if you feel boringly okay most of the time, this just tells you that you do not have the money stress or fears related to debt. And that is it for today's presentation, and thank you all. If you have
Okay,
any
thank.
questions, you can
Yeah,
go ahead and ask me on this.
yeah, we can have like 2 minutes of question answers. Any of you can ask Hitansh anything. Um, yeah, Dildar, you can unmute yourself and speak.
I have a question about how to create emergency fund and how to invest that without using those funds in our day-to-day activity.
That's just purely about mentality. You can divide your funds, yes. How to create an emergency fund? You have to decide an amount based on your needs. What are the emergencies you might face in the future? Let's say now there's a new virus coming up. That is a possibility. There might be accidents. The economy might crash. So depending on that, depending on how the current situation of you is and how the situation of the country is, you can always decide according to that. When you have this money, you just have to have a mindset that, okay, this is my emergency fund. I'm not going to touch it, definitely not going to touch it unless I actually need to. And that is just purely based off your mentality. I hope that answered your question. If not, I can elaborate a bit more.
Uh, Elaborate on the exact tools which I can use for the emergency fund.
Yeah, right. So the tools you can use for the emergency fund are firstly banks. You can just deposit it in the form of gold or silver as well. It does not have to be cash, gold, silver, any commodity, or anything that is of high value. When you invest this, this becomes near money or something that can be liquefied easily. It is within your reach. You can go to the bank. You can tell them, hey, I need this. I'm facing an emergency. Let me take this out. I will use this now. The rest of it, keep it with you. Or you can just store it in the form of cash at your home or in online banking accounts or even in the stock market. Your emergency fund does not necessarily have to be something that is physical cash or physical commodity. If you're investing in the stock market, you get decent amount of returns out of that. That can also be your emergency fund. Like, hey, I'm getting 30,000 of profit from stock market. This is the thing that I'm going to use for my emergency, and this is not for my personal, personal needs.
Understood. Thank you.
Right.
Do we have any other questions from the girls? Jasmine, Sakshi, Shivani?
No.
No questions. Okay, did you guys like the session? Did you guys enjoy it?
Yes, please.
Yes, we enjoyed the session.
Okay, I hope you guys learned something about, the debt traps and how to save and how to make your own budgets and everything, your savings. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so much for having us.
Thank you,
Yeah,
ma'am.
thank you
you
for
can. Thank you.
thank you for the class.
No worries. Thank
Thank
you guys
you.
for attending.
And yeah, you all can leave. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Hitanshi. Also can leave.
Great. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye bye.